Welcome back. We are discussing the Pope and environment with emphasis on his messages about climate change. And this comes ahead of the much anticipated climate conference in Paris that will take place between the 30th of November and the 11th of December. For Kenyans, that Nairobi is the environmental capital of the world brings closer home the Pope's appeal for the protection of God-given natural resources. And experts say the Pope's deep dive into environmental gospel is a timely connection between faith and science.
By framing the challenge of climate change in terms of something that each one of us has a role to play in, whether we are a farmer in Kenya or whether we are an industrialist in India or a banker in New York City, our opportunities for acting are different. Our areas in which we can make a difference may differ, but it begins with the responsibility to accept that each one of us has a role to play. And I think Pope Francis has, through his persona, but also through the way in which he speaks to the world, always had the common man and woman child in mind. He does not speak upwards. I think he speaks to all of us. And whether we are of his religious community or not, I think we saw already at the United Nations General Assembly this September when he addressed the world community of leaders there, but also of citizens across the world, that he has that capacity to reach to where each one of us in the end makes choices every day, where we define our responsibility to our children, to our community. And I think that is the reason why this is not a lecture to the world.
The Pope looks at climate as a common good.
And therefore to speak out together with all those who are seeking urgently needed and effective solutions. I am similarly confident that the Paris Conference on Climatic Change will secure fundamental and effective agreements to enable these real men and women to escape from extreme poverty. We must allow them to be dignified agents of their own destiny.
As we see in our own, the Christianity talks about Genesis, the beginning of the world, where God created everything for man, and everything he said was so good. That has given us an opportunity to speak about our role as co-creators with God. Every time you add another tree on this earth, you are also creating with God. Every time you plant a new plant or you engage in protecting what can damage God's creation, you're also protecting God's creation. And therefore, as leaders, whatever religious affiliation we come from, we must remind ourselves again and again that humanity was not created just to consume what is there and leave nothing for the future generations. We are looking forward to other generations to find the trees we found, and we have planted new ones. In fact, somebody said, the greatest leader is the one who plants trees. He may never sit on under their shade, and others will come and find them.
Apart from the health challenges caused by climate change, there are consequences on food security, and farmers will have to change their farming methods in order to adapt to the climate change.
Kitambo, hii shamba yangu alikuwa mzuri. Sasa nikiejegewa biogas, natoka manyua, napanda viazi, natoka mzuri kabisa. Sukuma kama hii ni poa.
We are encouraging farmers to stop using the inorganic fertilizers because the inorganic fertilizers are part of what is contributing to the greenhouse gases. When nitrogen accumulates in the soil, it releases the nitrate gas. Nitrate gas is one of the greenhouse gases that goes into the air and affecting our ozone layer.
The Pope says science has practical and moral consequences, and his appeal is for a new dialogue about how, quote, we are shaping the future of our planet, end quote. He hailed President Barack Obama's vision on climate change during his Washington tour in September this year. History shows that the Catholic Church was initially opposed to science. The question is, what has changed?
People have opened up their eyes. The reality of things is such that people have to open their eyes and accept reality as it is. And so, you know, even as an institution as big as the church, you can't keep resisting progress all the time. You've got to go with the times and so on and so forth. And the role of the church is to evangelize real people, to evangelize people who are in a real situation. If it's a situation of poverty, it's our role to evangelize them. If it's a situation of, environmental, degradation, we have to evangelize that notion too, and so on. So I suppose it has come through learning and through experiencing that you cannot remain outside the horizon. Yeah. You cannot. You have to evangelize the reality.
So it is a global problem requiring global attention, and every nation that cares about the future has a certain position about climate change. Those positions will be presented at the forthcoming climate conference in Paris. The conference begins on the 30th of November to the 11th of December this year.
Sense of risk and threat have become far more clear. I think to many leaders across Africa, but also other nations, the cost of inaction is becoming very apparent. And it is not only in the extreme weather events that are a foreboding of what we will face, but it is also the very practical illustration. Droughts on the continent of Africa are immensely disruptive. They disrupt economies, but they also lead to displacement. They bring communities into competition over resources with one another, from which sometimes conflicts arise. The impact of climate change is not just in the scientific realm, in the atmosphere in terms of emissions, it's what it does to the resource base on which we base our economies and in which we must operate and live with one another. That threat, I think, is certainly become even more clear and perhaps more visible also in reality. But the second driver is really the opportunity to act. Not only have we a necessity to change the way our economies can move towards a low-carbon future, this prospect has also opened up an enormous amount of technology development. The cost of renewable energy, for instance, has come down significantly. That is why, whether it is here in Kenya with the green energy policy, with geothermal power, the Lake Turkana wind power project, and many other renewable energy projects, we are seeing suddenly an opportunity for Africa where 60 to 70% of its citizens still do not have access to electricity in the year 2015.
With that, we come to the end of the program. Our next stop, Paris, that will be hosting a global conference on climate change. Remember, the conference begins on the 30th of November this year to the 11th of December this year. See you then. I'm your host, Alex Chamwada.